Ai, ko Alex Hawea tōku ingoa, heuri tēnei no te tairāwhiti, no te whānau ākai, Ngāti Onione. I tupu ake au ki reira, engari ka noho au ki tāmaki i nei, ko noho au ki konei mō ngā tau rua te kau pea. I noho ana mātou ki te atatu, he pāpā hau, tōku whāoku tamariki, nana ki a katoa, wāku tamariki, engari ko au tētahi kaimahi ki roto te kaunihera o tāmaki. Social entrepreneur by nature works as a part of a large organisation to disrupt the way we do things for a greater good. Kind of like an entrepreneur, but for the benefit of the people that we're focused on. And for myself, that focus is West Auckland, and particularly our Māori and Pacific communities. Having lived in West Auckland for coming on 20 years, it's a really awesome opportunity to be able to give back to the community and look at how do we create more opportunities, how do we do things differently as council as well, you know, when working with our communities. He kai ke aku ringa. To me, there's the literal sense of like having food in your hands. But to me, food is an indicator. It's not actually like whakatauki, right? You've got to look beyond the corridor. What is that telling you about the standings of those people? If they have no kai, they've got no... Is it because they've had a rough patch? Do they not have the means to produce the kai themselves? Do they not have the means to trade for kai themselves? Ririata sort of challenged us to think about the Māori economy and what the economy was measured by back in the day. Because hākari originally was actually a big ceremony around kai. And there's these big A-frame structures that people would bring and present kai and place it on the different platforms. And essentially it was like a Māori stock exchange. You could measure how well different hapū or different marae were doing by what they presented. Not as a thing to be proud of, but it's a great sense check of where, if you were the rangatira, I guess, of all of these marae, you could see who's doing well and who's doing not. That's when it started to make sense, that whakatauki began to make sense, because that kai being an indicator of the economic standing of our people. And so I think we need to think about how are we going to enable our people to produce kai or have kai in their hands. People don't realise the cost of living in a place like Tāmaki requires you to work that many hours and do so much more. You're getting home and it's dark. There's no time to do stuff in the mara, and that's kind of where my world's got into now. Over the last 5 years, I have become more and more time poor, and so my mara is just overgrown, like there's weeds everywhere, I need to pull it all out. And so that's why I've sort of pushed back and gone, how do we create Māori food systems in an urban environment that takes time away from you, because time is the biggest thing that you need. I think in the urban systems, we need to think differently about mara kai. Are we looking at vertical gardens? Are we looking at indoor gardens? Are we looking at micro gardens? All those different things that can create sustainable food systems for us. But like, how do we marry up data from overseas or even from here? That stuff with mātauranga Māori or Indigenous knowledge systems with people's lived experience. Because the lived experience for a lot of people is, I'd love to have a garden, but I don't have time. The mātauranga says that you need to understand the elements and how they work, but the research tells you that in some places they're growing gardens on the side of buildings. So where do all three of those collide? If we're looking at kai systems, if it's going to be kai, let's do something different, because kei reira te ao hau, that's where you will find the new things. My hope for that whakatauki, he kai ke aku ringa, is that my kids can confidently say that in a very literal sense, to have the tangible things of this world, but also to have, you know, that social capital, that connectedness to who they are. Even my kids, for me, he kai ke aku ringa can manifest in them just knowing who their great-grandmother is. You know, like none of my grandmothers I knew. But the fact that they know their grandparents and they've got a great grandparent is huge. That's always the goal, to try and give them what you didn't have, but ensure they still can go out there and make sure they have food in their hands.